Welcome back in, everyone. It's time for another episode of the Gibson Show, and we've got another guest from SSG. Today, we have got Bosco. Bosco, how you doing, man?
Good, Gibson. How you doing today?
Doing good, thanks. First off, thanks for taking the time to join me for this, because I can tell by your background, you guys are pretty much getting ready to go. We're only, 48 hours or less away from kickoff?
Yeah, just about for us. We're the second game, so yeah, we would be playing right about maybe another hour or two, but yeah.
You guys all set and ready for it? Because you look at the list, you've got you guys, former SI champions, TSM, former SI champions, and then you've got Mirage, who've been on pretty good form lately. You know, they had a pretty decent stage last year. They got to a major. And then Reality TV, who, you know, unfortunately for them, their roster's almost completely changed with some of the moves that have been made.
Yeah, I mean, the teams in this qualifier, none of them are to be underestimated, no doubt. Reality TV, we've scrimmed against them. You know, we know they're a good team. Mirage, same for them. They've got great players. You know, they got a former teammate of ours, Dexter. You know, we all think he's a great player. And of course, TSM. I mean, they're all great teams. And at the end of the day, though, if we're playing at the top of the game or top of our game, we can take any one of them, and we can beat any of them in this qualifier. So that's the goal for us. You know, we just want to go in there, play our game, and you know, where the cards fall, they fall.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing I'll say about all these close to SI Quals is nobody's going to coast their way through to these finals. You got to be on your A game. So we'll touch a little bit more on that later, but let's get stuck straight in, and I want to talk about your career. First off, you're Mr. Playoffs. You know, there was a big article put up about you in CGG earlier today. You've got a pretty much impeccable record when it comes to playoffs. Why do you think that record has been the case for you? Like, do you think it's been individual factors that you bring to the table, or do you think it's just been, you know, the fact you've got the right organization and the right players around you?
Yeah, I guess I would say it's a combination of a bunch of different things. What you just said, like having the right teammates at the right time, and just like, you know, there is a degree of like chance to it, you know, depending on who you match up with throughout the qualifiers. You might not be playing a team that, you know, handles you better, and just stuff like that, you know. Nothing's ever like set in stone going into these things. Like any team can win, and it's just like what team is playing the best on those days during those matches usually is the one that wins. I've never like seen teams in a qualifier that, you know, don't deserve to win. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's how I pretty much look at it, and I just happen to be on the winning side of it. Pretty much every time. The only qualifier that we didn't win was the Raleigh one against TSM as well. And I just remember that day, like, we were playing well, but they were playing so well as well. Like, they were hitting shots that, like, Pojo was playing like a different beach that day and during that series. He was hitting crazy shots on us, making crazy plays. I remember this one round on Clubhouse Basement where he absolutely shut us up. And, you know, stuff like that can happen. Like when you're playing like the other top team in the region for the last spot, you know, both of you are duking it out for invitationals or the major, whatever, you know, whatever it may be. So, yeah, I mean, I can't speak to it any more than that. I've just always gone into it like wanting to win and wanting to be the best every time. That's never changed. I've never lost an inch of like drive or passion for the game, and my team has always had the same feelings.
Yeah. So one of your ex-teammates, when I was talking to Skies, was this, you know, Canadian, was described as Peyton Manning with that mentality he has. Could we say that you're like the Eli Manning? You know, you've won nearly every playoff game you've ever played, or is that a comparison you don't want?
I'm not like a huge football fan, so I don't know like if that's like a good comparison or not, to be honest. So I can't honestly say.
I think that's one of the ones that half the community who watch football will say it's a good thing, and half will say it's not a good thing. But
okay, but yeah, I mean, I've seen. Yeah,
we'll talk then. You obviously, I think most people will know, but for the people who don't, your career in Siege, like a lot of pros, kicked off on console, and you played for Elevate, who got on to PC as well. They're playing in a completely different region, but you won an invitational on console. Take us back to what it was like, you know, because Siege was really in its formative years back then. Console still had invitationals. What was it like playing in that SI on console and going on to win it?
Yeah, I mean, on a personal level, that invitational meant a lot more to me than I honestly care to say and explain. Just for like personal reasons, there was a lot of like I had a lot of controversy back then with just some personal issues, and it kind of like tied into like people like not wanting me to play the game and not wanting me to follow my passion and go down that road and or to commit as much time to it, stuff like that. So to be able to like see the results and see it for myself and go there and play in front of a crowd, playing for the world championship, doing what I love. I mean, it meant so much to me, like on a whole different level. And just like as a fresh pro in a new game in a new scene, like all of us there are like, wow, this is crazy. Like, we just started playing this game this past year, and we're at an event. There's a couple hundred people out there in the stands. It was truly surreal, and that's I think like going there, doing well, and like getting that like gratification just kind of like sparked the drive to want to do more and keep going.
Yeah, because that's it's funny you should bring that up, because I spoke to a pro in another game, and it was pretty much the same for him. His family and his friends didn't really back him going into esports. His parents were like, you'll never have a career in this, and it kind of took him winning a major event and his parents seeing it to go, you know what? Yeah, I think you've made a right decision. You've made a good choice. And I think the good thing about esports is I think there's still so much more to come. Siege brought out some exciting news a couple of months ago about the future and, partnering with Blast. So they're making a long-term commitment to the game. So hopefully we'll get to see lots more of you over the coming years. But Bosco, I think you talk about important games in people's careers and the way things go. You made the switch to PC. You've signed with SSG. I think you're their second longest serving player now. You've been on the team second longest. But I remember watching an SI game a couple of years back, and it was you against G2, and it was one of the playoff games after the groups, and you lost to that G2 team, which was incredible. But that kind of, to me, sparked a real drive with that SSG team, because that next calendar year you guys were phenomenal, and then it resulted with you going the whole way in the following SI. Do you think that game was a turning point, or was it other factors that led to you guys starting to have a lot of success?
Gosh, going back to the beginning of Space Station, the iteration that I joined that had Redeemer, Thinking Nade, Chala. I mean, I honestly think that team was right there. You know what I mean? Like they were very close. Like they're on the cusp of like being a top NA team, and I just joined them, wanting to help make that happen. And I think when I joined them, it was definitely like a big upgrade for them, and it made us like more of a powerhouse. It's and then yeah, I wasn't with that team very long, like with that iteration very long. We made short changes shortly after, that invitational that you were talking about, where we played G2 in the quarterfinals and we lost. I mean, to be honest, we played incredible at that event, even against G2, and they were arguably, in their prime. Like we took there were a couple rounds that like small things happened against those guys that if it didn't happen or go wrong the way it did, like we could have actually taken that series, and that SI would have been completely different. But there was just a couple things that, as a team we felt that like we needed to change, and I maybe coming close, just that close, and losing to the champions that the people that ended up winning the whole thing, it probably sparked more in us to want to make a change and to like really dig deep and like figure out like what small underlying issues we have and like what we actually could benefit from making a change from. And so like shortly after that we ended up replacing Redeemer, and then later down the line that year we ended up replacing Chala. But I mean, that's how a team works. That's it's a business at the end of the day, and you're constantly just trying to make things better. And that I think like throughout the year we're constantly improving, taking steps up, and as we're bringing in new talent and players that could bring and do more for us. Like we first got Fultz, just a young powerhouse fragger that could open rounds up for us and really just put kills up on the board. And then you know, we have that iteration, and we feel like we kind of plateau. Like we go to the Raleigh Major, and we honestly play really well. Like we dominate groups, but we go into playoffs and we fall flat, and we felt like we were lacking like just that like consistent leadership to like keep us in a good spot. Like we showed up to the quarterfinals against Secret at Raleigh and just, you know, we completely flopped. And I honestly, I'm not taking nothing away from those guys. Like they were good players, but we should have been able to handle them like better than we did. And you know, after the event, like Troy came to us and you know he expressed interest and said like I really like what I see from you guys. I like the system you run, and I think I could help like make that even better. And so you know we didn't even really hesitate. Like we had to take the opportunity. I feel like any team would when you got Troy coming to you asking to join. And then when we picked him up, it was still like a learning process. Like we had that DreamHack Montreal, that was our first event with him, and we had him on entry. We had him like on entry Ash trying to IGL, and like, you know, we like just assumed that was gonna work out because that's what he was on EG. Like he played their, you know, their Ash and he IGL, but he wasn't like the entry. He like kind of like lurked and did that stuff. So it was like different and kind of like a learning process. So like after that event, when we didn't do that well, we actually lost to EG at that event, his former team. Swapped him to like the main support so he could IGL better. Swapped me to flex. You know, made some more changes and then we like just slowly built off that. And then yeah, I mean, the result was the form that we were in at SI 2020.
I think that move to bring in Canadian, as you said, it was one that you couldn't really turn down the opportunity for. But I think it's a move that long term has had a massive impact on both teams. You know, SSG and then for Canadian himself personally, because that was the first time we saw him really evolve his role and continue changing as a player, and it's, you know, done him a lot of good in the long term. But it also led to the culmination of winning an SI. And I suppose with you guys going through the upper bracket, you went into that final with a map in hand, and that's kind of a double-edged sword when you think about it, because you can go into a mindset in any tournament where you've got a map advantage, thinking, right, you know, we're already up, this should be easy. But it's never that way when it comes to a final. Anything can happen. How did you guys approach that game going into the final? Because a lesser team would have switched off and, you know, kind of coasted on the fact that they already had a map in the bank.
I do agree with what you said. I do believe that it is a double-edged sword, but like not a complete 50-50. Like I think it's like obviously way more of an advantage for us to have a map advantage. Like the mental aspect of it like is a very like maybe small thing you could touch on. Like I don't personally believe we went into that into that finals like coasting by any means or thinking like that we had this in the bag because we had a map advantage. Like we knew who we were playing against. NIP at the time, and they were an incredible team. We always struggled with Latin American teams too, so like we were not taking them lightly by any means. But it's impossible for me to say like that it didn't have like any impact. You know, like I don't know if it did. I don't think it did, but I do think another part of something like another factor that needs to be considered is that like they also played like right before the finals, like so they're coming in hot off a nice win. I think they beat TSM like and we're just sitting there watching like we're cold. That is a big deal. Like I would say that's more of a mental impact than the other part of it. Where we have the map advantage. So I mean we went into that matchup like ready to fight, ready to battle with those guys, and I mean they came out hot and we did not. And you know they were just kind of running us over. We didn't really have answers. We were kind of just like, if I had to describe that matchup, it's honestly like a boxing match where you just let your opponent like wail on you for a little while. Like that's really what it was. Like the first two maps they were just wailing on us. Like we had no chance. It felt like they were hitting shots. Like nothing we were doing was working. They had max confidence, and it felt like we were just on our heels a little bit. But after like we didn't let like any of the maps that we lost like phase us in any way. It was just like after the map we walked backstage and we're like, okay guys, I mean they just kind of smoked us. We're not playing bad. We just got to keep going. We got to just keep pushing and rolling with the punches. And it was like that for 2.5 maps. And then on the third map, Clubhouse, which is like our map, that was the map that we had to fall back on. We were down 4-0, I think it was like and we ended up like bringing it back. I think there was like two main clutches that kind of like shifted the momentum for us. But I mean, I would say that we were never out of it, even though we were getting smoked. Like I think the clutches just affected them mentally a lot. I think it kind of caused them to just have some like tilt factor in their team. You know what I mean? Especially the way that the rounds were lost. Like they were so close, and they were rounds that like 9 times out of 10 they probably win. So it's hard to not let that stuff affect you, but I feel like that's what happened with them, and we kind of just like capitalized on it, and the momentum just shifted in our favor, and we just built off that.
Yeah, is there a moment that you can think of as that was like the turning point? Like, was there a point in that game where you thought, yeah, this is ours, we're winning this SI?
Gosh. I mean, I never like gave up hope or anything like that. But it was during that clubhouse game for sure. It was after like the 2 clutch rounds. One thinking Nate had a clutch, he had like a 1v1 with Kamikaze in server on cash, you know, with Bandit, and he pistoled him. And then the second clutch was Rampy's, where he fell down below. There's like 3 people alive still, and they're planting. He stops the plant. Like after those 2 rounds, I think it was like the life was kind of like it was kind of like a wake up call, or like a realization, like, okay, guys, these guys are faulting, like they are getting tired. Like we just keep doing what we're doing and keep pushing, and that's exactly what we did.
Yeah. I love this because it's like a trip down memory lane for me too. Because watching that game was an absolute blast too, and you eventually win the game, and you get the opportunity to lift the hammer for the second time in your career. This time being on PC. Did it feel different? Well, you know, did it feel different winning it on PC than Xbox?
So it did feel different. I mean, obviously, like because of the personal stuff, the first Invitational kind of just like holds a special place for me. But that one was more of like hard work pays off and grinding pays off. You know, especially for me, because when when Xbox was first discontinued, the Pro League from Xbox, I didn't really have plans to switch to PC. I kind of just felt like, well, I'm done now. That's unlucky for me, like, because I never played PC games before in my life, like not FPS games. So I pretty much just thought I was done, and like I would say for a month I was just kind of like coasting at school, didn't really know like if I wanted to try playing Siege again, or if, what the heck I was doing. Yeah. And then after a while, I kind of just decided that I missed it and I wanted to give it a go. And I scraped up some money and I ended up getting a PC and starting from the bottom, and I was a sub for Elevate, because they switched to PC earlier than I did, and they ended up like being able to qualify for the event, like the first season they were there. And one of the guys had like a visa issue, so that I had just won, Xbox with them, so they knew me really well. They trusted me. They just brought me on as like the sub, and brought me along. I'm going to this event with like a month's worth of PC experience. I'm going to this event with a Razer, like a hard Razer Firefly mousepad. You know what I mean? Like with the RGBs around. Like I literally don't know what I'm doing yet. I looked like a fool to these other guys, I'm sure. And I mean, and we played Penta, and they were, that was like the start of them, you know what I mean? Like on their come up, and I mean, they were just, they just smoked us. Like we didn't have a chance. I didn't have a chance individually against those guys. Like that was like, to me, it was just like, these are guys that have been grinding PC for years versus me. Like, and then after that event, I get cut from the team, like obviously, and it makes sense, even though it sucked. Like I just wasn't on the same level as those guys yet, and after that, like I just kind of had to put my head down and grind, and that's exactly what I did. Like I started playing with very low tier CL teams. I played with like a powerhouse team who wasn't even powerhouse, which Intero like created, that was a part of that org. They weren't even a CL team. And I would say it was just kind of like climbing a ladder slowly after like hours and hours of grinding, like to get to each step of the ladder. And then eventually, like people just, realized what I was capable of, and I was constantly showing what I was capable of. And I just got opportunities and I acted on them.
Well, it's a massive credit to you, because it's a tough switch going from console to learning how to play FPS games on mouse and keyboard, to then winning an SI. It's been a career that's been full of ups, but I think you just won an SI, and it seems like the sky is the limit for the SSG team. and then the whole world comes to a stop. COVID comes in.
Yeah.
There's no SI. There's, everything's up in the air. As a player at that time, when you look back, it really couldn't have happened at a worse time for you guys in the way you were playing, could it?
I mean, no. It was almost like the same thing happened. Like as on Xbox, like when Xbox Pro League was discontinued, we were the best Xbox and North American team. Like, yeah, we were the best Xbox team in the world. Obviously, we just won the event, and we felt like if the Pro League wasn't discontinued on Xbox, we would have gone on to keep winning events. And it was almost the same thing in a different way, but. We had just won invitationals. We were on the top of our game, and then COVID hits. We all just moved out to Vegas, like right when it happened for this what we thought would be like this big league that was coming, and then it was all just like halted, and we were all just here, couldn't play like, you weren't playing for like events anymore. Like it definitely sucked, and it felt very unlucky. But I mean, yeah, we had that first season where we were playing remote, and we still ended up placing first that season. And there wasn't a Pro League finals, but we would have been there.
Yeah.
And who knows what would have happened and who or how long that would have continued for us, like our run as a good team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think COVID and the situation of not playing for events, not playing for LANs, just like kind of slowly deteriorated like our mental as a team. Probably more so for others, but like as a whole, like we just weren't the same team after a year, after several months of just being at home every day, playing at home, playing not going to events, not playing internationally. So,
and I think then you look at it and you go, your career has been defined by setbacks and then massive bounce backs. You've really bounced back from moments of that, and I think last year a lot of teams struggled with getting back into the idea of LANs and stuff. I think NA in particular, as a region, it doesn't have the standout team, or at least not at the moment. The way, I don't mean that as in not talented. I mean, if you look at EU and you look at LATAM, it's always the same couple of teams that are qualifying for events. But in NA, every event you go to, it's different teams. And I think NA's looking for that team now to really step up and make a move. And I look at the roster changes you've made. You've brought in Yeti, who is an incredibly talented player. He just had his best stage in Pro League after being released from Sonics. Do you guys think that you're pretty well positioned to, going into SI and going into 2023 to be that team, to be the BDS of Europe, or to be, the W7M of LATAM, where you're going to qualify for every single event and dominate the region?
I honestly do. I believe we have every tool in our arsenal, every weapon in our arsenal needed to be a top team. It's just a matter of going out there and showing it and staying consistent. I mean, we haven't been a full team with Yeti for very long, so we're still in the process. It's all a process, like building up and just improving and figuring out your flaws. Just becoming better. But I personally believe that we are on that bounce back right now. Like you said, like we had a huge setback last year. We had a tough year, some tough roster changes, and some tough stuff behind the scenes, honestly, that people just don't know about. But yeah, now we got a great teammate, a great positive guy like Yeti to come in and kind of like spark something in us all again. And I feel like we're on that come up right now. I truly do believe it. And I just hope we can go out there and show it.
Yeah.
But I do want to say about what you're saying about like NA. I do just kind of feel like it's because of the system for the year, like the way the point system worked for like qualifying for events. I feel like, yeah, it was more consistent in other regions, but like like LATAM, for example, like they have like their Copa Elite Six that they still go to. Like it's not just based on points; it's different. Like it's a more like consistent system where like the top teams are going to do better. When you just have like best of ones between like NA and EU, like some teams can just have a bad day, and some lower tier teams can squeak out a win and like really mess up the standings and cause teams that arguably aren't as good as some of the going to a major as some of the teams that didn't qualify. And I think that was the case for NA for the whole year. However, right now I do believe that NA like has a lot of very strong teams just from experience scrimming them and seeing them like make their changes and build their identities. So I'm very hopeful for NA as a whole for this Invitationals. I mean, obviously, I'm not discrediting like Latin America. They're obviously top. EU, they've been really good lately. They have had really good teams with Rogue, Koi, and BDS. So I'm really excited for this Invitational. I think like the collective points for the whole year really shows who the best teams are and like who deserves to be at Invitationals. And I do think all the teams that are qualified right now deserve to be there.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that, for the competition.
Yeah, well, I think that as it stands now, globally, there's more talent in Siege than there ever was. The coaching is better. Teams are playing better Siege than ever before. And I agree with you. I think NA, from top to bottom, is a really good, like, really, really good region. Like, even look at Mirage. They were having an awful year. And then in stage 3, they qualify for a major. It clicked. Something clicked with that roster. So this is where, you know, you're speaking of Yeti too. He gave you guys a gift this week, didn't he? I was speaking to him and he had a bit of a cold last week, and I think it went right through the camp.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it started with him or Fultz or whatever. It started with someone, but I mean, yeah, it spread to pretty much everybody slowly.
That's the joys of
but
living.
Everyone's over it. Yeah.
That's the joys of living in a house with all your teammates. So then we're talking about the new competitive schedule. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. They've changed it up. We've got rid of a stage globally, so there's only 2 stages now as opposed to the 3. And I think for players like you guys who are at the very top, I'd be excited because it gives you guys the opportunity to take a break if you want to. You know, it's been pretty much all action for every single year of your career. I know some players struggle with booking holidays and getting time off, so I think it opens up that. But even more importantly, it opens up the opportunity to have minors again. And you obviously competed in a minor last year that had one of the biggest prize pools we've ever seen in Siege. Are you excited to see these third-party events coming back in and giving players more opportunity to win more tournaments, win more money, and just at the same time, if they want to take a break, being able to take a break?
Yeah, I think the minors coming into Siege again are great for the scene personally. I think like and they're all like cool, like unique events, or they have been at least. Like you had OGA Pit Croatia. Like who would have thought you were going to Croatia or Gamers 8 in Saudi? Like you're going to these places and you tell your family, your friends where you're going, and they're like, they can't believe it. They're like, you're going where to play video games? You know, like I think it's great. I think it's great for like the players and the scene. It's good for all the talent, you know, new talent coming in. They get to experience that stuff, you know, because there's a lot of younger new players that like are on the come up that are going to get to experience that stuff. So I think it's really good for them. And I'm personally really excited for the year. And yeah, like I said, I hope that, you know, we are on that bounce back arc for us. And I hope we get to, you know, take advantage of that this year.
Yeah. Even for casters like me, it's good to have those events back as well, because it gives more opportunities. Like Gamers 8 was my first ever proper event, my first ever LAN. And there was this moment of walking into the venue and just be like, that's Rampy and Fultz and Houghton over there, just, you know, getting lunch. Whippet, my duo, came up to me the first day and he was like, I just got in the lift. And like Bosco got in the lift with me. And I was like, what is going on? But it's cool to get those events up and running again. So now I want to talk a bit about outside of Siege. So as a pro player, your life revolves around it. You know, you've got scrims, you've got VOD reviews, you're practicing, you're constantly thinking about the game. You guys created a whole defense that's still called the SSG Rome on a map by itself. Outside of Siege, what do you actually do to relax and chill out? Because it is a very mentally taxing game.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's one of the most mentally exhausting games I've played, especially since I picked up like the IGL role. It's even crazier. Like I have a new respect for all IGLs after doing this. It's, you know, you're just constantly thinking of so much, and especially with Siege, you're like, there's so much to think about, so many angles and so many like positions that you gotta think about, and like it's not like just as simple as just running around and like shooting people that move, like you know. So, and especially when you're on the grind for the seasons, which, you know, there aren't really any breaks, so you're almost always on the grind unless you don't make majors. You're double scrimming almost every day. So for 6 hours of the day, that's what you're doing. Like you're actually just laser focused and using, you know, just so much like brain capacity, brain power to like just get you through those scrims. And then I would say there's an hour to 2 hours of like workshop stuff, debrief stuff that you're just talking about the game. You're talking about what you're doing, what you could be doing better. Like it's a constant like process. So you're like, it's like a full work day for us, I would say. I mean, we get started later. We don't start scrimming till like 12, but yeah, it really is a lot. And to decompress, I mean, I feel like it's just people just find things that they like to do. It's whatever people like to do to help them just like de-stress and like just feel better. People do it. Go to the gym, going out to golf, going out to disc golf, going out to eat, just watching movies, watching TV together, like that. Just shooting it.
Yeah.
Just doing stuff together. I mean, I obviously not every team does stuff together, but we do. That's how we've always been. So it makes it easier, honestly. Like after scrims, after the workday, we all just chilling together, kicking it. It makes it very easy to decompress, at least for me.
You did speak about a couple of competitive things you do, though. You mentioned golf. You mentioned like bowling as well. Who's the most competitive player on the team?
Like for stuff outside of the game, or just in general? Gosh, I would say like everyone's pretty competitive, to be honest. Like all the guys like play ping pong. I'm like the only one that doesn't really play ping pong. I'm not very good at it. But they're like crazy. They have like crazy competitive games. They're always playing against each other. I would say it's probably Yeti or Matt, like hot and cold, to be honest, who are like the most like competitive, especially like going against them. You know what I mean? Like they want to win. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I always got that vibe from Yeti, and even the interview he spoke about the ping pong. He was like, he won his first game, and he was like, "Yep, I told you I'd get there." But I want to talk a little bit about Yeti. He told me specifically. He said, "I want you to ask Bosco what I'm like in scrims." So please, for everybody watching, what is Yeti like in scrims?
I I don't know what he wants me to say or what he's thinking I'm gonna say, to this. I don't have anything crazy to say. I mean, he's kind of a crackhead. Like he's a super high energy guy, and he's always, you know, he's always screaming, always having fun, always having a good time, keeping the vibes up, and just, you know, he's a joy to be around, joy to have around in scrims, and he honestly, I would say, brings a lot more to the team than like people might think. Like that's something I wanted to say, like on a more serious note. Like personally, like I never teamed with him, and I didn't know like what kind of player he was or what his mind was like for the game. You never really know, you know what I mean, until you talk with them and team with them. And to my surprise, like he had like a much better mind for the game than I had previously thought. So, he actually has like a lot more of a voice in this team, and I think the stuff, the ideas, and like just like the energy he brings to the team, it's invaluable.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap up, I'm going to ask you the question I've been asking everybody who's been on, and it's about players and individual players. Ones you like playing against, ones you don't like playing against. You've played at many multiple international events. You've been playing NAL for a long time. So we'll kick it off first. Who's the one player that you really don't like playing against? Now, I don't mean because you don't like the person. It's just the way they play is really annoying to play against, or they're just really, really talented, and it's a gunfight you don't want to get into.
This is any player internationally?
Anyone you've ever played against.
Yeah, I mean, when I like think of that, I usually like I like hold in my head like that I don't like playing against certain teams. Like it's not usually like one player, because teams usually all play the same way. Like W7M, like the way those guys play, like it could be any one of them on the team could pop off or do something, that just breaks our round. Like those guys are like very annoying to play against, and like teams that make you uncomfortable and make you play a different way, kind of like throw your script out the window, like you have to play it more on the fly. Like those are the teams that are like that cause problems for others, and I think are the hardest to play against. So like teams like that, I would say like if I had to give you one, and off most recent experience, it would be W7M. Like those guys, I want to obviously have another shot at playing them, but they're like a very annoying team to play against. Like you are not playing like Siege the way that you've been playing it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I got to say about that.
And then looking at the other side of the coin, what player or team do you just love playing against? Like you see that it's a fixture in NAL, or you get drawn against them in groups. Like who's that team you're like, yeah, I always enjoy these?
Gosh, there's been a few. I mean, like back in the day, it was MIBR. Like we were always going against those guys. Liquid is another one. Like we obviously we never beat those guys, and it's so annoying. But I love playing against them. I love just like we go into each match like, all right, guys, this is the series we can finally beat these guys. Like we can finally take them down. Like and it's always like we always have like that fire in us. So it's like a super fun series no matter what, even if they're smoking us. So like that's another team that I would say I love playing against. Like when we see we're getting matched up against them, like, oh, let's go boys, it's Liquid, it's our time now. Like so I would say those are the guys for that.
Yeah. So then, before we wrap up, you've got a very important game this weekend. I think everybody, all the SSG fans, cannot wait to see you guys in action. Is there anything you want to say to the fans ahead of these big qualifiers?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say, like, to the fans, thank you for all the support, and like to the fans that stuck with us. Like, I feel like a lot of people have kind of over the past year gone to like become fans of other teams because of the stuff that we've gone through. Like we've had some we had a dark time, a dark period of time this year, and I don't really think there was like good things brought to light for us or about us. So to the people that stick around and are still supporting us, we really appreciate you. Trust me, we're grinding. We're trying to become the best version of ourselves and get back to where we know we can be. So thank you for sticking with us, and yeah, we're gonna go out there and do our thing.
Yeah, well, thank you, and look, best of luck this weekend. I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do. Obviously, yourself and Rampy are absolute cornerstones of the SSG team, and you've been there for a long time, and I'm sure a lot of people would love to see you going back at it. And look, everyone loves a bit of Houghton. Houghton has his moments, he's come up clutch many a time. So best of luck this weekend. As I said, may the best team win. If anyone at home hasn't, please make sure to give Bosco a follow on all of his socials and on the SSG one to keep up with what the guys are doing. And if you're enjoying the content, give the channel a like and subscribe. But you're the star of the show, Bosco. I'll let you sign us out.
All right, I don't know what really to say, but yeah, thanks for watching, guys.